to the 12th video of our series. So the last 11 videos was all about the basics of graphic designing, which softwares you can use, and how can you get started as a beginner. And we saw about Canva and Photoshop, and in Photoshop we completed complete basics and each and every menu and each and every options which you can use to create designs. So in this, starting from this, we will be working on the 3D panel. That is, we will be looking into the basics of 3D panel in this video, and in our upcoming videos we will be looking into many more examples of creating brochures, advertisement banners, designs and stuffs. So let's get into the video. If you are new to our channel, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to this video. In this video, we will be looking everything about 3D panel in Photoshop. This 3D panel is basically an advanced concept which is generally used by highly professional graphic designers, or it is used in creating 3D models, 3D structures, or even 3D art and stuff. So we are going to look step by step everything about what is a 3D panel and where it is exactly used and how to create it. Let me start off by telling the difference between a 2D and 3D structure, guys. A 2D is basically any structure which just has a height and a width. But a 3D, for that matter, is suppose any structure which has a height, a width and a depth along with it. So right now, what you're looking in the screen is a 2D rectangle which is pre-created by me, and as you can clearly see that it just has a height and a width. So which is why we call these as 2D structures. Now basically by hearing the word 3D, as I said you the word 3D, you might be thinking about CG movies or 3D animations and stuffs. Of course that is used in 3D movies and CG gaming and animation stuffs, but along with that it is also used to create 3D illustrations or even in brochures, designs these days. So that is why we even use 3D in when it comes to graphic designing. That is, even 3D logos are made these days. So that is why we use 3D in graphic designing as well. So let's get into it. Right now, what you are seeing in the screen is a 2D structure, and we are going to create a 3D structure in this. That is wherein we will be opening the 3D panel and we will be creating a 3D structure. The first step over here is to make sure that you have selected your layer in the layers palette as we discussed before. And right now you are seeing that we are in the layers panel over here, and there are two other options. The first one is 3D, layer and channels. By clicking on your layer which you want to make a 3D structure out of it, come to the 3D panel over here, and since we don't have any 3D objects created in this file menu, it is asking us to create a new 3D object, wherein you will be looking into some menus over here. The first one, which is source. Source is you can either create a 3D out of your selected layer, that is we will be selecting this layer as our source, or else you can select your work path. That is, suppose if you're creating any structure with your pen tool and you want that pen tool structure to be your 3D structure, so in that case you can select this work path option. Or current selection. Current selection is when we are going to select this selection of ours. We have the choice to select our layer, that is current selection. And file is when you can load any pre-saved objects from your menu, and you can use that 2D structure, and out of which you can create 3D structure. That is the work of the file. Let it be select layer itself, and to the bottom over here you will be finding three menus, which is like 3D postcard, 3D extrusion and mesh from preset. Right now in the first step we are going to use this 3D extrusion, and the 3D postcard will be explained by me as we reach into more advanced concepts, and mesh from preset as well for that matter. And mesh from depth map is again things will be looked upon in advanced concepts. So right now let us concentrate on this 3D extrusion menu. 3D extrusion is nothing but it is just a feature which creates a 3D structure out of a preloaded or a pre-selected layer, and the layer can be selected by us. That is, it is our choice to create any layer, and the layer which we have created will be converted into a 3D object under this 3D extrusion menu. So right now I will select this rectangle of ours And as you can see, it is in a 2D structure, but I need a 3D. So a 3D of this rectangle will be nothing but a cube, because adding a depth will become a cube. So by clicking on a 3D extrusion menu, I will create, and you can find a difference, of course. So this, if you're a beginner and if you're looking at this right now, this might definitely confuse you, because there is a whole lot of graph down here and a line going up and down. You might be thinking like, what is this, or what I have stepped into? But trust me, this is gonna be too easy. The difference that you can find here is that before, the structure just had a height and a width, but as I said you, now as we created a 3D structure out of it, if you just rotate this by clicking on your mouse, you can find the depth that is added to this. See, as you can clearly see in the screen, that it is now no more a 2D structure, or it is now no more a 2D rectangle, wherein it is a cube now, as we have created a 3D layer out of it. So let us just run into some fundamentals of this. Right now, the graph which you can see in the below is just nothing but the floor or the bottom panel of any 3D structure. It is completely your choice to either make this graph appear or disappear. So this graph is basically just for your reference, so that you can know whether it is in a straight line or it is imbalanced. In this case, you can see that now it is not balanced. So we will balance it. And as you can see that the graph is very useful, because we could immediately find out that no, it is not balanced. And that is why this is used. And however, if you wish to just make this graph disappear, you can just press Ctrl plus H or Command plus H in case of Mac. See, so Ctrl plus H makes it disappear. And again, if you want this graph panel to appear, you can just press Ctrl plus H again, and there we are. So this is just a reference, not a serious concept or something. This is just for a reference, guys. So now click on this, and this axis line, which like you can see 3 lines over here. One is in green arrow, a red arrow, and a blue arrow. So this is what we call as axis lines. In this axis line, you can find 3 different shaped buttons. The first one over here above, which is in the shape of a cone, is used to move our 3D object up and down, or left or right, or front or backwards. So this cone is used just to move our object from its place. And you can see that there are some beautiful shadow effects in our 3D object, and which is again because of light setting, which will be looking very soon now. So the first cone, as I said you, is for moving, and the second one, which is in the shape of an arc, is used to rotate our object. As you can see, as I have placed my cursor over here, you can see a circular path, and moving it will rotate our object either to the right or left, or in any motion which you would like to. So this arc is used for rotating. Coming to the next one, a small button which is used to scale your object. You can either make it bigger or smaller, or wider, or again smaller. So you can either increase the height or width. So these 3 are the basic buttons which perform the function of moving, scaling, and rotating. And as I said you, there are 3 axes always in a 3D object, out of which like green axis over here represents our height, the red axis represents our width, and the blue color axis represents the depth of the 3D dimension. And it is also categorized in axis basis, like this is y axis, and the red one is x axis, and this is z axis. So we used to measure this in axis. And coming to the top over here, you will find a panel which is basically the 3D panel. And to the right in this 3D panel, there is an option which says 3D mode along with 5 different options. The first one over here is used to rotate our object. As you can see that by clicking on this, we are able to rotate our object by clicking on it. The next one is again to rotate, but this is not used to just to rotate, but using this we can roll our object completely. By roll, what I mean is this. As you can see that we can roll it completely to any direction, wherein the first one is just used to rotate to the left or right. So this is what roll does. Next is by using this we can drag it and place it somewhere else. As you can see that we can move our 3D object completely from one place to another. So this is the drag function, and the fourth button over here is used to slide and expand the object. As you can see, this is again similar to drag, but we can just slide it forward and to the reverse motion. So assume that this is a slider, wherein this is a dragger. So using a dragger, we can just drag it, but we can't slide it to the back and front. Wherein using a slider enables us to slide it to the backward and the forward. And the last one over here is performs the function of this small button over here, which is obviously to scale our 3D object. So that is what was the functions of these 5 objects over here. And moving on to the layers palette right now, in our layers palette, you will see a number of menus. The first one is our environment. Environment option allows us to adjust the lighting of our environment. See, as I click the environment, you can find a difference over here. We have a spherical ball over here, which is used to adjust our lighting. As I move my spherical ball to the left and right, you can see the angle of light is drastically changing to the path wherein I am moving my ball. So the next one over here is the scene adjustment. Scene adjustment is where you can set your camera to a particular angle, and this is obviously like useful while you're rendering the object. So you're going to look at it at a later stage. And the next one is the infinite light. So the difference between environment lighting and infinite lighting is that environment lighting enables you to change the light settings of the whole environment, wherein infinite lighting is the option which allows you to change the light settings of this particular object. As we are in our infinite light settings now, and you can find a spherical ball again, but this time remember, if I change the angle of this light, this is not going to impact our whole scene, wherein it will just impact our 3D object. So I will move my object to the right, and you can see that the shadows are casting in a 120-degree angle. I will keep this in 90 degrees, and you can see the difference. It is directly casting, or it is directly projecting our shadows to the bottom. And suppose what happens if I move this to the complete left? This is the difference, right? Like the shadow projects itself to the path of its light. So this completely depends upon the angle from wherein you project the light. So this is the function of infinite light. The next one over here is the rectangle option. As I clicked on the rectangle menu, you can see the difference in the properties menu over here. As I just clicked on this rectangle over here, in our properties you can find some menu options which says cast shadows, catch shadows, and invisible. So cast shadows is the option which is why you're seeing shadows over here. Suppose if I deselect it, you will see the difference, which is we have no shadows right now. That is, the infinite light is not working. So cast shadows is an option which is enabling us to project shadows in our 3D object. And invisible obviously makes the object invisible. So we don't want that. Like this invisible option is however useful when we want to check the wireframe settings of our object. So now it is not needed, and we need a visible 3D object. And next is shape preset. In shape preset, you can completely select how your cube wants to look like. Because if I change the presets, you will see the plain cube of ours in different shapes. That is, the second one over here is the bevel option, which makes our edges to become smooth. That is, I will show you. See, you can see the difference now. The next one over here is bevel frame. Bevel frame adds a frame effect to our bevel edge and bevel with counter. So as I change the effects, you can see the difference in our structure. So this is why the shape preset is used. And let me tell you something about this shape preset effect, guys. This shape preset effect is basically used by me as well in creating digital arts. So what I used to do was, like, instead of just using plain cubes to create art, that is, I use this plain cubes in art which has building or castles, so this kind of art effect. So in that, to bring some form of reality, I just use this shape preset options, not in Photoshop definitely, but in Autodesk Maya. That is a software for advanced 3D modeling and 3D animations and stuffs. So in that, we generally use the shape preset kind of effect to bring the concept of reality in our art, be it a designing of buildings or castle or anything which involves shapes like this. To bring some reality effects and retouching stuffs, we use the shape preset. So that is the use of this. So that was about our rectangle panel. And before we move on to the next one, which is rectangle inflation, I would again like to show you about this light settings. And as we discussed about this infinite light just before now, but I would also like you to show the properties. So here in the properties menu, we again have some menus. The first one over here is preset. Preset is again the same thing, guys. Like, it has preloaded menus on this, and you can choose the lighting condition depending upon your artwork. So here it is in custom right now, and custom has a color properties of white with the intensity of 90%. That is, the light intensity of light is 90% and the shadow is in 0. But now we have some drop down menus over here, and as I change the preset setting, you can find the difference in our shadow here, because these are all just like depending upon our own art and our own trial and error. So I will just keep the settings and I will show you the difference. First one is 3D print preview lighting and blue lights. So blue light basically creates a UV light kind of image. And CAD optimized. Cold will create a structure of a blue color light, because basically sceneries with cold nights and stuffs are often related with blue color. So that is why the color is blue automatically. And then dawn is referred in like light sunish color. And then daylights, as you can see, is of an intensity of 100% with a natural grayish color. And then default lights, which is what we already had now, which was a whitish color with a zero softness and 90% of light intensity. And then fire, as you can see, it replicates a reddish color which shows the fire. And then hard lights, lush is nothing but a bit of a grassy color. And then Mardi Gras, so it just not only changes the shadow properties, but it also changes the lightings. So that is what is a night light. As we can see, that it is a bit yellowish in color from the inside, and from the outside it is projecting a blackish shadow. So in this way, like, we can choose any preset which is available based upon or depending upon our artwork. So I will go with the default lights again, and you can see we can change the color menu. That is, we can choose the colors over here, whichever the color we want. And as I keep changing the color, you can see the difference on the structure. So let it be white as it was. And the intensity is nothing but again like very similar to transparency of light. For example, in this case, a less intensity will give you more of the light, and a higher intensity, as you can see, makes a structure transparent. So let it be in 90 itself as it was before. And the next one is shadow. So this shadow is nothing but the shadow of our lights, guys. Now the shadow has a softness of 0%, which means that our shadows, which is being projected over here, is crisp and clear. But a shadow with more softness will create a more blurry shadow. You can see the difference as I increase the shadow. It is in 24% now, and you can feel what to say, like a mild difference in our structure as well as the shadow, because 24 is not that much, but as we go to 80 or 90, you can see the difference in our shadow, right? It was not as clear as before. It is a bit blurry as well as a bit grainy. So as and when we like keep on increasing this shadow's intensity, you can find the difference over here. And what happens if it goes to full 100? Again, the same thing. Like it is more grainy, more blurry, and more unclear and uncrisp. So let it be 0 again, and you will get a realistic shadow. So because 100 wasn't realistic, it was looking like as if we have drawn the shadow with pencil sketch. So that wasn't realistic. However, the 0 looks more realistic with a more crispy, clear, and realistic shadow. That was all about this infinite light in presets. Moving on to our next concept, in our layers panel, below rectangle, you will find, so you are finding some options here which says rectangle 1 inflation material, bevel material, extrusion material, back bevel, and inflation. So this material, whatever you are seeing in the screen, is nothing but the color of our 3D structure. So, however, like while creating 3D designs and structures, we use multiple softwares, especially for coloring alone, there is a software. But however, in Photoshop, they have simple and easy preset menus wherein you can create and change the color settings. So, looking on to our first menu, it is the front inflation material. The front inflation material is completely about our front structure, that is this structure of our material. So we at any time can change this base as well as interior color, and this ball structured menu over here, inner color, that is the color of your 3D structure. So right now it is in a reddish color because we have already given it a presetted color which is red. However, we can change the structure, pattern, as well as the color of this 3D structure of ours. For example, I will give it a metal brass solid option, and that's it. You will find a difference here. So as you can see that our front face is now in the color which we have selected, which is this brass color. And as I have changed this color, you can see that the base color got changed automatically. As I said to you that as we make any change in our color, the base color tends to change automatically by itself. So that is how it is. So as we saw about our base color and interior color, and right now it is in brushed gold color, which is the base color of our material over here and the front face. So in here itself, you have some another set of menus wherein you can further like increase or decrease the properties. So the first one is the glow. Glow is the glowiness of your object. That is the glow that your material has, glow effect. So here right now it is in 3%, and as we increase this, you will see the difference in the rectangle over here. The more the glow, the more the glowy kind of structure on your material it is likely to be. So that is the function of glow. Metallic is the metallicity of your object. So as we increase this, you will now tend to find that it is more of a metallic in nature. Metallic basically enhances the metallicity of your material. It is in 25% now, and as we increase this to 60, again you can find that it is again creating a metal-like structure in the rectangle. So let us bring that back again to 0, and there you go, the difference is there. Next is roughness. Roughness is the rough texture that your 3D structure is likely to have. The more the roughness, the more the rough texture, including the solid edges. And I would say roughness basically makes your edges of the structure to look more of a unclear and blurred and grainy effect. So the more the roughness, the more the grainier structure it is likely to going to have. So the next is height. So height is basically the height of your material. The more the height it is, the more heighter your material is likely to be. And the next one is opacity. As you can see that it is in 100% now. The lesser the opacity, the less transparent your object is going to look like. It is in 62 now, and you can see the difference. It is completely opaque, meaning that it is transparent and we can clearly see the inner dimensions of the structure. Let us further reduce this to 31, and you can, as it is getting reduced, you can find the difference very clearly. It is getting less and less and less transparent. So 18, and what happens if it is at 0? Simple. The complete entire front portion is now missing. That is, the front portion is completely transparent, that you can see all the other 3 dimensions of the inner side. So let us not have it like that. Let it be 100 again, and it is back to normal. So next is refraction. Refraction is basically like how much of the refraction the transparent material is going to have. Right now it is in 1.190, and as we increase the value, you can see that it is just again the glowy effect of your transparent material. So let it be again in 1.190 again. And the next is density. And coming to the bottom, you have 2 options, that is density and the translucence of the structure. So this was all about the material panel. Now again, the bottom materials, like here is the front bevel, extrusion, back bevel, back inflation, and boundary constraint. So till here, rest of the 4 of the menus is again likely to have the same menu and same properties over here, like what we saw in front inflation. The only difference is this part was for the front inflation, and this part is for the bevel material over here. This part is for any extrusion if we likely to make, and this is for the back side, that is the back side of the structure, and this is for the back inflation of the structure. So the properties remains the same, only difference is the area. So that was all about coloring your material. So the next, what you can see here, the option which says default camera. For example, if I rotate my structure like this, so now we can see that it is in Z axis, Y and X. So it is not in a default mode, like it is not in a default position. And I want to bring it to my default position, like how it looks like in the beginning. So in that case, I will click my default camera, and there we are again in the same position where we were in the starting. So that's what a default camera does. It just basically brings you back to your current view. And as we saw earlier, it is infinite light settings, light 1 and light 2, and as we saw about all this in our previous topics. So this is the basic panel structure and the basic properties of any 3D structure. And here you can see 4 menus again. The first one is overall scene menu. It gives everything about the environment, light and color material. So it just has everything in the same menu, that is overall menu. The second one is your material menu, wherein only this rectangle part is specially focused here. The next is coloring part. So here we saw this coloring options here, and the same thing is just in a separate panel over here. And the last one again is specially meant for lights. So this again we saw it in the overall menu in the bottom. So the only difference is the first panel has overall all the settings combined together, wherein the second, third and fourth has those separate settings in a separate column in order to make it look more easier to the user. That's the only difference. In our previous part of the video, we saw the basics of 3D panel and we created a 3D structure from a 3D extrusion panel wherein we had a rectangle 2D image from which we created a cube. Here we are going to create separate 3D structures from the preset menu of Photoshop. So let's get into it. And right now what we have is a plain loaded blank document with a blank layer in it. And let's create preset 3D structures, guys. So right now what you have to do is just make sure that you have selected the layer here, come to the 3D again, and this time we are going to work on mesh from preset option. Click on it and you will be able to click on a menu now. Clicking on it will pop down a menu and you will see some number of options here. The first one is cone, cube wrap, and then cube, cylinder, donut, hat, pyramid, ring, soda, spear, and wine bottle. So all these are nothing but these are just the presetted, or I would say like preloaded designs of Photoshop. So clicking on each option and giving the create option here creates the structure which we have selected here. Suppose we need a cone and we can now give create. And you can see that we have created a preloaded cone from the Photoshop library. So this is nothing but these presets are just the Photoshop library materials. However, if you wish to download external materials, you can definitely do that. There are a number of free websites to do that. And the next one, so this was a cone and I'll just undo it. And the next one is a cube graph. And you can see it's again a cube which is warped in different structure. I'm hitting undo again and this time it is a cube. There isn't gonna be much of a difference between a cube and a cube bar, as you can see it. So the next structure is a cylinder, and here it is. This is a cylinder. And the next one, they do have the image of a donut. It can be popularly used in advertising designs wherein to promote a donut or a food stall or food shape. These presets can be used for any kind of designs. And the next is they have a design of a hat, as you can see here. So as I said, you like as a beginner, it will be easier and interesting for you to use preset menus to create and practice 3D structures. So the next is pyramid. And then as I create new structures from the pre-available menus, you can see that the structure is getting, and this is the ring. And soda. So this one is always my favorite effect in the 3D preloaded libraries. So this can be used for any kind of like soda can advertisements or in any designs, particularly even for digital art and stuffs wherein if you want the protagonist to have the soda can, then you can do that, or in your 3D designs you can include this as a part of the scenery. So the reason why I'm showing you this preset libraries is that you have a number of menus which is automatically preloaded by Photoshop, making your work easier. Now imagine to create a soda bottle like this without any preset library, we have to create a cylinder first, and then we have to like extrude the edges. We have to create a bevel effect, and that's a whole lot of process. Like step by step, we need to create. But from pre-available menus of Photoshop, we can just create these structures in less than 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, but less than 30 seconds. So that is completely like work and time saving, right? So that is the main motto behind the Photoshop library. So we saw some basic properties and structures of 3D panel in this video. Starting from our next video, We'll be looking into multiple examples and more in-depth concepts.